thank you all for being here. Like Nico said, I'm Nikki Mosher. I'm the head of SEO here at 2 Octobers, and I am one of the strange SEOs that loves technical and local. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today about local SEO from a multi-location standpoint.
And I'm Yasmin Davila. As Nico mentioned, my background, I have quite a bit of experience on varying brands. So some larger organizations, he mentioned Capital One. I did some time at Dish and Choice Hotels, and I also have a lot of retail experience, as well as on the agency side too. So having experience to draw from both of those has been great. And I am leading content at 2 October, so excited to talk to you all today.
So our agenda, we'll get into our agenda for today in just a minute, but talking about why sorry, I'm gonna go back. Yeah, it's on the slide. We're gonna talk about why multi-location strategy is important to get started.
Yeah, so just want to sort of set the stage. I mean, I think it's pretty apparent that, local is a really top of mind topic in the SEO and content world and just in digital in general, right? So, and a lot of that is attributed to the rise in mobile searches and mobile activity over the course of the years. And I think none of us are strangers to the fact that, most people are really predominantly searching on their mobile devices. In addition to that, 46% of over 2 trillion searches on Google are local. So how many is that? It's a lot, right? That just means that there's a lot of opportunity to be found. In addition to that, we've seen a 900% increase in the number of near me searches just in the past couple of years. So search has really become much more local intent based than ever before. And so what this means is that these things in combination with a lot of locations means that you have a lot of opportunity to be found or not, right? So this is a chance for you to really tap into all of these searches that are being conducted in all the different areas that you may have a physical location or a service area, and making sure that you have a presence there for your customers. And it also affects your in-store sales too. So, we're not talking about just search behavior online and getting to your website, but 74% of shoppers are also looking up store information, things like what is the closest location to me, hours, product stock information. So they're really looking for a lot of that timely content before they make a decision to visit a physical location or store. And then with that, 70% of shoppers will visit a store if they find location information that's related to what they're searching for. So if people don't find the information that they expect or want, then they could end up going to one of your competitors, right? So it's really important that not only do you have a presence there, but that you're actually managing that and having all of that information present across all of your locations for across everywhere that you're based.
Awesome. Going through our agenda today, so we'll talk about multi-location pages, obviously. We'll talk about Google My Business, local links, some reporting best practices, and then overall best practices and top tips as kind of a summary of everything that we cover today. And like Nico said, if you have questions, drop them into the Zoom chat. If they're relevant to the slides that we're on, we can try to answer those kind of in the moment. Otherwise, we'll definitely answer them at the end during the office hours.
Okay, so as Nikki mentioned, we want to dive into how to really handle setting up location pages, especially when you're dealing with, a vast amount of locations. So we want to sort of preface this by saying, we're going to get into a lot of really focusing on tapping into that unique content per location, but understanding that, there's some instances where you may have hundreds or even thousands of locations, and it may not be feasible to, update them to this granular level, which is okay, but you'll see the takeaway here is really that we want to just limit that generic and templated approach as much as possible. And there are some workarounds around that we can talk about, or if you have specific questions and office hours, if that's something you're facing, but just wanted to set that precedent. So there's a couple of key components for really optimizing and standing up these location pages. The first is optimized titles and meta descriptions, then having that location specific content, as well as various types of schema markup, and then a consistent NAP or name, address, and phone number, and then an internal linking strategy. So the first component seems, pretty basic and fundamental, but it's actually really critical because your optimized titles and metas are really going to be one of the first impressions that your potential customers and current customers are seeing within the search results. So it's really important from this perspective that you're creating unique titles and meta descriptions for each location page. Oftentimes the temptation is just to create the same exact title and meta description and just swap out the city or state name. And you really want to avoid doing that as much as possible. Like I said, it's okay to use some aspects of templatization in terms of branding and maybe some pieces like that, but you really want to have those unique content pieces that are differentiated per location. So we have an example illustrated here for you just to show what that would look like. So these are 2 pages from the Melting Pot website. You can see the one on the left is for Atlanta, and then the one on the right is for San Diego, 2 very different markets, of course. And you can see there at the top are their respective title and meta descriptions. So if you click through, Nikki, one more time just to show the graphic there. So you include your brand name there and a geo modifier. So in addition to your brand and geo modifier, you want to include a specific target keyword throughout those. And again, each of them should be uniquely written to the location. So in addition to just swapping out the city and state name, you can see there that they actually did differentiate. The titles are pretty similar, but within the meta descriptions, they have some unique aspects there where it's still taking the brand messaging and the flair of the brand in there, but different wording. So it's not just duplicated across all of their pages. So just an important consideration as you're standing these up. In addition to that, it's even more so important that you're creating location-specific content for the page itself. So you want to make sure that, again, rather than just copying and pasting the same templatized content across all of the location pages, that you're describing the amenities and services and features that are unique to that location. So if there's some specific products or services that are only offered at that store, or for that area, those are things that you want to call out there. That way you're really focusing on that local relevance and not creating duplicate content across many pages. So we have some examples to illustrate that as well. So here, these are 2 pages for Domino's. Obviously, Domino's is a huge organization. They have over 17,000 locations. So, that's quite a vast undertaking. And you can see here, if you click through one more time, Nikki, it'll highlight here for you. So there's two different stores here in the same city with differentiated content. So both of these are in Denver. They're just different locations. And you can see that they have applied some of the same aspects of the template in terms of the brand messaging. There's some specific items that they want to call out as part of the brand, but they've changed it just enough so that it's not identical content, and that's what you really want to do. And I would say, if you're dealing with that many locations, again, it's okay to templatize it to an extent because, of course, it's probably not realistic to write every single page that way. But there are ways that you can work with, your developer team or anyone who's managing that on the back end for you, where you can perhaps have some dynamic insertion in there or have some aspects of the content that is changing dynamically. Same for the meta description. So just wanted to point out this example as a good one of, where they have thousands and thousands of locations, but they're still able to differentiate that content.
Schema markup is definitely something that is recommended when it comes to any aspect of local SEO, but especially with local SEO when we're talking about multi-location. You want to make sure that you have that code on there that really helps Google identify what you're trying to tell them that page is for. So schema markup is basically code that you put on your website to help search engines return more informative results for users. So schema markup will control information on the Google My Business listing, or it can help promote information like special hours, reviews in the SERP. And when we're talking about products, you can add product schema that can help your products show up in the SERP. Specifically today, we want to talk about making sure you have local business schema, FAQ schema, and event schema on your location pages. Local business schema should be customized for each location page. So each location should have local business schema that has hours and address information and geographical information such as service areas and geo coordinates that are specific to that location. I've definitely seen some CMS platforms that will generate schema for every location page using one address and phone number and not having individualized local business schema. So making sure that schema is customized for each location page. Local business schema can help you have different hours if you have multiple departments. If you're a chain business such as like Home Depot, which I'll show in a minute, you can have different hours for different departments. Things like review showing up in the SERP, so having review stars under your SERP result can be powered by local business schema. And in general, it tells Google what type of organization you are. So there's hundreds of different local business types that you can choose from and get really granular in telling Google exactly what your business does, which can help benefit you in the SERP later on. So Home Depot is using local business schema to help differentiate between, or help show that they have different departments and different brands within their store. Auto dealerships specifically are able to use local business schema to show different hours for different areas of their business. So the main dealership has one set of hours, the service center has one set of hours, and the collision center has a different set of hours. So this can be really beneficial if you're looking for services from a specific department of a business. FAQ schema is when you mark up any type of frequently asked questions on a page. This is especially helpful because these results will show up in the search engine results page and take up more screen real estate, which then gives your competitors, pushes your competitors further down the page. And it helps answer searchers' questions right from the SERP, which is especially relevant because we're seeing a lot more zero-click searches lately where people are coming to the SERP, they're finding the answers that they're looking for in the search results and not going to the website. So the more you can make sure that you're helping to answer users' questions in the search results, the better off you'll be. So FAQ schema is definitely a good way to do that. Grubhub's taken this a step further. They're not actually they're providing a service for local businesses and multi-location businesses, but they're mimicking something that we see on a lot of location pages, which is having the FAQ results. And they're actually essentially creating landing pages for businesses that they provide delivery services for. Another benefit of FAQ schema is having results that have FAQ schema and having those FAQ snippets in the SERP. People have seen up to a 50% increase in click-through rate by having those questions and answers show up in the search result versus results that don't have that. Another type of schema that's beneficial for multi-location pages is event schema. Right now, with a lot of events being virtual, there's a new type of event schema called online event schema, which allows you to mark up your events on your location pages and increase the chances of those events showing up in the search results and on the Google My Business listing itself. You definitely have a better chance of events showing up in the search results if you're hosting events on a third-party platform, promoting events on a third-party platform like Eventbrite. Those typically will automatically show up in the search result without needing event schema, but adding event schema definitely increases the chances of you getting that search feature of having your events show up in the search results. So it's highly recommended. Like Yasmin mentioned earlier, NAP, name, address, phone number, and also website consistency is incredibly important. Anytime your business information shows up in the search results in other third-party sites like Yelp or MapQuest or Yellowbook, having that consistency across all of those places is incredibly important. Google looks at that as a trust factor. So using a tool like MozLocal or Whitespark or BrightLocal to ensure that your information is consistent across all of your locations can be incredibly valuable. One tip for doing this at scale is having a master data sheet of all of the locations that you're managing and making sure that all of the information in that master data sheet is accurate between the website and based on what's on the website, and then using that information to populate all of the different citation sources. Tools like Moz Local, Whitespark, and Bright Local will help you automate this process. You can upload that spreadsheet of all of your master data information, and they will update any information that's missing or incorrect, which saves you a lot of time if you're managing anywhere, anything over one location. It can be very time intensive to go and make sure all of that information is up to date. Yext is another solution that I would recommend only for enterprise locations. If you're talking about like anything over 500 locations, just because there's a lot of nuances with what happens to your data when you stop paying Yext. But Moz Local, Whitespark, and Bright Local would be the three that I would recommend looking into for really managing your citation information at scale.
And another component that's really important is creating that internal linking structure in order to further establish your local relevancy. So in addition to having backlinks from local organizations or other area businesses that you may be affiliated with, the links that you create among pages within your own site are equally important, if not even more important than that. So some of the ideas in order to apply this, you can link to some nearby locations. So if there are any stores within the vicinity, within a few miles, you can include links to those location pages. You can also include links to store-specific popular products or sales, any specific services that are offered, if there's specific events, so that could be a sale or a promotion, any relevant blogs, articles, or other timely content. So you'll see a lot of instances now, businesses will have updates pertaining to COVID and any of the updated policies that are specific to that store and some of the measures that they're taking. So that could be an example of some additional information that you could link from your location page. So we have an example of that here on the next slide for Roto-Rooter. So you can see here, this is for a page in their Franklin Park, Illinois location. And you can see there in the boxes, they actually have some pages linked. So their service pages there, emergency service, etc. All of those are actually links to service pages within the Roto-Rooter site. So that specific location offers those things. And if you go to any of those, you can learn more detail there. And then on the bottom there, under Learn More from Us, they're actually linking to some relevant blog posts. So in addition to that, they are furthering their authority within the industry that they're in by linking to that blog content. And then they're also incorporating some internal links within the copy itself. There you can see underlined in that paragraph for the Franklin Park water damage restoration. And there they're actually including the geo modifier of the city that they're located in, just for some anchor text without it being too overstuffed. So you want to avoid just repeating the same city keyword and linking that repetitively, because that can be deemed as spam. But this was a good subtle way to do that. And you can see there, they only have the one link incorporated there. So it's done in a good way. So wanted to provide a couple more examples. We've covered a lot of information thus far, but really outlining some best practices from a couple of different types of location pages. So we'll get into a few here just to give you an idea of what these things look like in action. So Nikki touched on Home Depot before with their Google My Business page. This is an example of a store page here, and you can see all the different components here. Nikki, if you click through one more time, please. Thank you. So you can see here they have a prominent call to action. So it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but they do have a shop this store link right below the city name. And then right under that, going into their name, address, phone number information that Nikki touched on before. So again, it's really important to make sure that this is consistent across all of your citations or mentions of your business. Even just having, this as the Home Depot, it should say the Home Depot across all of their citations, not, Home Depot, Ashburn, or anything like that. It seems, again, like a trivial thing, but it's a super important factor. So they have that information up front and center here, along with the information that consumers expect to find, like store hours and a local phone number. Just something to point out there too, it's important to have that local phone number as opposed to a 1-800 number, because you want to have that local relevancy there again. And they're on the right-hand side. So we talked about before having those unique store features called out. So for this particular store, these are the services and items that they offer. And they've clearly called those out here above the fold for consumers to easily find. And there on the bottom, they have their store weekly ad preview. So that's a store specific sale or promotion where they're able to incorporate some of that retail space as well, and then still having that store specific information. And additionally, so we mentioned before having those product links. So I mentioned popular products. Here they have it labeled as trending in your store, but you can see here they've got those frequently searched popular products. So again, just another opportunity for sales, but it's done in a tasteful way where consumers can say, hi, you know, maybe this is something they're looking for. And now they're seeing it and thinking, oh, here's some popular options that maybe, you know, I can take a look at, and I know the store is likely to carry those. And then again, they have the links there on the bottom for nearby locations. So these are all, you know, you can see within a, 5-10 mile radius. So within reason. And that also helps to solidify their presence from that location standpoint. And going down a bit further, so we looked at the example before with Domino's. This is another example of some optimized copy. So here again, there are components to it that they have templatized just because of the volume of locations. I think they have about 3,000 stores nationwide. So, maybe not realistic to customize it completely, but they do have components here that are unique to this Ashburn location. And then on the right, they're actually incorporating some unique store reviews. So if you have the ability to have store-specific reviews on these pages, that's great because that's also user-generated content, which Google always loves to see because it's completely organic, right? And that can also help solidify your presence there. So a couple other examples. So this one is for Ethan Allen. So this is something else that you could do as well. For them, their design team is an important part of the store experience. So they actually have the design team information and store specific staff info linked on all of their store pages. So if this is something that's relevant to your business, maybe you have a bio page for each of these, what they specialize in, and how you can get in contact with them if that's something that's relevant for your customers. And then here we have an example of Rack Room Shoes, so another type of retail establishment, but they are also including links there on the bottom right to nearby locations. And then they also have under news and store events, some specific news and events happening. They have some updates regarding curbside pickup and some of the changes that have happened with everything going on. So it's very timely information and very specific to that location. This example is for Walmart. So you can see there they have some store specific updates as well. That box there is a little bit difficult to read, but it is regarding the updates on COVID and what the things that are going on at the store and what they're doing as things begin to reopen. And they also have a weekly ad placement, some additional news and events, and specific store coupons there. So they've incorporated a couple of different elements. And here on the right, just for fun, because I just wanted an ice cream example, Cold Stone Creamery, they also have some similar components. So they've got there, you can see features on the right-hand side. So store-specific services or features again, and all of the important information that customers expect to see. They have some photos there on the bottom, and then a couple of different call to actions under the Contact Us section. Excuse me. And then, so going into service area pages, we really wanted to differentiate these just because a lot of the same principles apply. In fact, you really apply all the same best practices as with the physical locations, but there are some considerations that are a little bit unique. So we wanted to call these out for you just in case this is the situation that you're in. So just a quick do's and don'ts list. So on the do's side here, you want to, in a similar fashion, target organic search results via optimized city and area pages. So thinking about, what are your large markets, where are you looking to target, and making sure that similar to the physical location pages where you have those store pages, that you're creating a city page. So if you have a Denver page, you have a Phoenix page, LA, whatever the case might be, you're optimizing those in a similar fashion. In terms of prioritization, again, if you have quite a few areas that you service and you're not sure where to start in terms of scaling that, it's good to prioritize with the primary markets, right? So in the case of Los Angeles, that would be sort of your primary market where you make sure you have coverage there. And then secondary priority after that would be to build out sub-market pages. So you could do, maybe like a Culver City or Torrance or something like that, and start filling in those gaps all the way down to then creating individual store pages. But just kind of starting from that top of funnel down helps to create some priority, and it just makes it a little bit more feasible to tackle. That way you're sort of making sure that you have coverage in those areas and then filling in as you go along. And then similar to the physical location pages, having links to any affiliate businesses or organizations in the area for that internal linking and external linking. And then making sure that the links for these city and market pages are easily accessible from the navigation. So you may have seen, and what I've seen in a lot of cases are organizations will create these pages, but you won't be able to find them anywhere on the site. You can only get to them through search, and that can really be seen as a doorway page to Google. And so you want to make sure that these are presented front and center and that consumers can find them, Google can easily find them, so that it's not deemed as sort of a shady or spammy tactic from the search engines. And then same concept as the physical location pages, making sure that you're creating unique content. So in this case, it could be maybe you have a citywide promotion that you want to showcase. Maybe weather is an important aspect to your business and you want to have some weather information on there, or any other business updates that may be relevant for that particular market. And then on the don't side, there's a couple of things that we'd like you to stay away from as you go forward on this. So, again, similar to the doorway pages, another common practice that we see, unfortunately, is stuffing text or footers with zip codes or city names. So you may have seen some sites that just have these really, really, really long lists with tons of zip codes in the footer, and the intention is to try to target all of those areas, and thinking that you'll get an edge from Google because of that. It actually does the opposite, and it ends up hindering you because, again, it comes across as a spammy tactic. So just make sure that whatever pages that you're standing up are focused on that specific market, and that you're not including dozens and dozens of zip codes or cities within the text there. And again, don't create a page for every city using a content template. So this is just going back to, as much as possible, creating that unique content so that you're not just having a generic page where you're just swapping out the city name across the pages. Because really the best way to think about it is, if you were a consumer and you landed on that page, would it be valuable to you? If it's just generic information, that's not really helpful, because as we mentioned before, people are really real-time searching and they're looking for that up-to-date information on product stock or what's popular or directions or near me. So it should really be specific to that city as much as possible. And again, don't fail to link the pages directly on the site or hide them in the footer. Make sure that they are in a prominent location that's easily accessible. Also, don't set up GMB listings for non-physical locations. So, you don't want to go in and create a page where you don't have a physical location. And, you may be saying, well, I've seen, a carpet cleaning business perhaps that has GMB listings, and that's true. It's generally going to be for their corporate office. And that's okay. Or there may be some other, unless there's a specific building where maybe they're servicing from, you'll see that sometimes with satellite TV providers, they may have some local presence, but unless there is a physical address to tie that to, you do not want to set up listings for that, because Google is very strict about that process. So just be mindful of that. And then also just have realistic expectations around ranking. So these are great ways to really help build up your local presence and your visibility in organic search. But the local pack, or you've probably seen, the map listings on the top of search, those are really going to favor the physical locations. So just be mindful of that. It's, that's really where that is coming from. And this is really intended to help you dominate in the natural organic results, which is still a great place to be on that page one spot. So just to highlight a couple of examples here of service area pages. So this is one for Stanley Steamer. So this is their page for the Las Vegas market. So they have, all the things that we talked about. The content is unique for Las Vegas. There on the bottom right, you can see they have a couple of different tabs. the specific payments accepted, the areas served, which we've highlighted here. So again, they're not zip code stuffing or city stuffing. This is, really the places that they are servicing with this page. And so this is perfectly acceptable, and this is a good best practice. They have, careers there linked as well. You'll see the review there at the top. That's actually specific to the market. They have location promotions, so these are specific for that city. And then the content under about this location is also differentiated for this page. So you'll see here on the next example is a page for their services in Phoenix. So you can see there, the quote at the top is actually different from the previous page. You'll see some differentiation there in the about this location content. And Nikki, if you click through one more time, I just want to highlight there on the copy. Sorry, one more time for thank you. And then if you see there, oops, on that copy where it says, it's hard to read there, but it says Arizona Midday, which is a local news station. So they actually have a link there to a local organization like we spoke about before. So they're really affiliating themselves with authoritative businesses in that market. And then again, all of this content is uniquely written for each of these area pages. So just wanted to provide that example. Again, a lot of the same concepts as physical location pages, but just some differentiation there to be mindful of. Experiencing some technical difficulties.
Well, maybe I have a question.
Sure.
Well, we wait for Nikki to come back. So, I mean, the examples you gave a couple of examples of customized content by a location page. Those seem pretty minor. I guess I was just wondering, like, if we're not supposed to have templatized location pages, I don't know, do you have other examples of the kind of content that you could do to localize it more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just as much as possible. So the examples that I provided, as much of those components that you can include is helpful. So if there are specific services to that store, if there's a specific promotion, if you want to spotlight a staff member, anything like that. Yeah, just as much of that as you can include, just to have some level of differentiation between the pages. So I think a lot of times, really, the main thing to keep in mind and to stay away from is just copying and pasting. Like if it's Domino's and they just have a paragraph that says, come order pizza from us, we offer carry out, get a free pepperoni pie, and you copy that across every location page for all 17,000 locations, and you just change out the city name. That's where you're going to get into trouble. But if you have, even an extra sentence or two in there, or you throw in maybe a coupon that's specific to that store, or maybe, if it's Domino's and they want everybody to order, their, I don't know, garlic bread that month, and they want to showcase a product, something like that. So just have some level of differentiation as much as possible.
And Nikki said that her computer powered off, so she's coming back as fast as she can.
Okay.
I'm happy to share my screen if that would help, unless Nico, you have it up and ready.
I can have it up and ready. Guess that would be. Is it easier for you, Yasmin, to?
Yeah, I can.
I mean,
I was actually ready to hand it over to Nikki, so she must have heard me.
Yeah, right. No, I know the next section is her. And I do have other.
Are there any questions from anyone on the phone, maybe before we move forward? Because we're going to start diving into more on the Google My Business side. So maybe any questions while they're fresh in your mind on the content side before we move forward? I know there's a lot.
Well, I guess one question related to the last question is the goal of what we're talking about with these location pages is, I mean, that is specifically to show up for location searches for my product or service. I mean, I know that's sort of an obvious question, but that, I guess that would be to show up in regular web results, or does that affect, do those location pages affect my GMB map listing?
Yeah, so for the physical location pages, they definitely affect the local pack listings. It's just the service area pages are more for the organic results, since you don't have a physical location tied to that, because the map is really reserved for the physical store locations.
I see you, Nikki. Are you ready to share?
She's working on audio.
Oh, is she? Okay. All right, well, then I have another question, and this might end up being more of a Nikki question than a question for you, Yasmin. But when you're thinking about service area, like I saw a business recently whose service area was the United States. And so when you looked at their GMB listing, it showed the entire United States, including Alaska and Hawaii, as their service area, which that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
But like how, I mean, like if you're, I guess, I mean, we're in Colorado. So if I listed my service area to be like New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, I mean, it seems like, would that like water down my chances of showing up in any one of those places?
Yeah, so you really want to try to stick with areas in the proximity, because if you try to go beyond that, that's where you start to kind of dilute the authority, right? Because, you know, the states may be neighboring, but the reality is that you're probably, it just gets a little bit wonky with that. So you want to try to stick with kind of the examples that I showed where you're staying within a general, you know, a couple mile radius. Even some instances could be larger. For example, you know, you may be a major metropolitan area that services some smaller towns around you, and that would be okay. But crossing state lines, yeah, that's probably something that I would avoid, just because that's not necessarily going to help you with establishing local authority if you're sort of dispersed everywhere.
And I think Nikki's back.
Okay.
Oh, are you talking, Nikki? Because I don't hear you. Oh, there you are.
There you are.
Are we good? Okay. All right, so I will hand it back over to Nikki. She's going to walk through Google My Business.
All right, we are back and talking about Google My Business. So the Google My Business listing, or GMB listing, people tend to use both interchangeably, is usually the first thing that people want to optimize when they're thinking about local SEO, especially from a multi-location perspective. It's the first thing people tend to see in the search results when you have the local pack results, which are the maps listings that show up at the top of the screen, and then you have the organic results below. There's a lot of components to the Google My Business listing. I'm going to try to run through a majority of them here, the ones that I think are the most important, and then give you guys a best practices optimization checklist at the end as well. And just a note, we will be sharing out the slides. So when you see links to resources, you'll be able to actually access those resources that we've linked to in our slides. The first thing to think about optimizing with your Google My Business listing and to pay attention to is your business name. You want your business name to match what's on the location page. So like Yasmin had mentioned earlier, with the Home Depot, it should be, if their business name on their location page is the Home Depot, then their Google My Business listing should say the Home Depot. If REI has REI on their location page, then it should say REI in their Google My Business listing. It shouldn't say REI Denver. So just keeping that in mind. Another thing that a lot of businesses tend to do is add keywords to their business listings. This is especially common in service area businesses. So Bob's Plumbing might add Bob's Plumbing, heating and cooling. But if his business name on his website is not Bob's Plumbing and Heating and Cooling, then his listing name should just say Bob's Plumbing. If you are noticing that you have a lot of competitors that are showing up ahead of you in the local map pack and they're using keyword stuffing or their business name is not exactly what it is on their website, you can actually do suggested edits and report different aspects of the Google My Business listing that might be spammy. And this can help you to gain some traction over your competitor because they are using those spammy tactics. And when those are reported, it can actually move them down in the map pack. Another thing to pay attention to is categories. The primary category for your business listing should be your primary area of service. You are allowed to use multiple secondary categories, but those need to be relevant to your business. This is especially helpful for service area businesses. So if you're a plumber, you also offer heating and cooling services. You also offer lawn sprinklers, anything like that's relevant to your business, you can add that as a second category. I recommend paying attention to your competitor categories because you want to stay competitive with your competitors in local search results. So making sure that your categories match your competitors. Another thing that's important to note is that your secondary category may show up depending on a searcher's query. So if I search for Nintendo Switch near me and I get a target result for Target showing up as an electronics store, and the very next search I do is comforter near me and Target shows up as a department store, they're using electronics store as one of their secondary categories. But because I searched for something electronics related, Target came up as an electronics store. So that's where it's really important to make sure that you're taking advantage of using those secondary categories and that they're relevant to your business offerings. The business description is where you get a chance to tell your business story in your Google My Business listing. It does show up all the way at the bottom of the listing, but it's definitely important that you pay attention and make this location specific while not keyword stuffing it. Make sure that it has information that you want customers to know and that you focus on what people would be searching for to bring up your Google My Business listing in that Google My Business description. You can change it seasonally. So REI has done a really great job of this because of COVID-19. A lot of their policies have changed. They're closed right now for in-store shopping. So they've reflected this in their Google My Business listing. The Home Depot has done a good job of talking about specifically the Arvada location and mentioning Arvada a couple of times, but not in a spammy way in their description. So I definitely recommend changing it seasonally or as needed, depending on what's happening with a business. The URL is another important field and often overlooked as far as how detailed you should get with it, especially for multi-location businesses. Using the URL of a specific location page for the URL field is important. A lot of times people will just put the main URL of the website domain, so the homepage, for the URL field in the Google My Business listing. But if you have a multi-location business, actually linking to that location page is especially important because that's where that user is likely going to think that they're going to land when they click on that URL field. And tracking traffic from those URL clicks from the Google My Business listing to the website is also important. Google My Business gives us that insight data, but it's not always 100% accurate. So using UTM tags in all of your URLs, especially the website URL on your Google My Business listing, can give you that extra layer of data tracking and accuracy. So using the source as Google, the medium as organic, and then the location ID that you would set up in Google My Business for each location as the campaign name. Also adding GMB sometimes can be helpful so you can track that traffic is coming from GMB. Claire Carlisle has a great guide to UTM tracking that I highly recommend checking out, and it helps walk through and helps you set up templates for all of your UTM tagging. As Yasmin mentioned earlier, on location pages, reviews are super important. They're also a huge factor of Google My Business listings. Reviews are a trust signal to Google, and they're also a trust signal to consumers looking to choose a local business. So having a strong review profile, not only on Google My Business, but on Yelp and Facebook, TripAdvisor, having reviews across a broad spectrum of websites helps send that trust signal to Google that your business is trustworthy. Responding to reviews is also super important. I know personally when I look at a business, if I'm comparing two different businesses, I mean, I'm probably a little skewed because I do this for a living, but I'd like to see that businesses actually respond to reviews, and not just responding to negative reviews, but responding to positive reviews too, and interacting with those reviews. It is okay to ask for reviews. There's a lot of great services out there like GatherUp that help you manage your reviews and send out text reminders and email prompts to your customers, which can be really helpful when you're trying to scale this from multiple locations. It is okay to ask for those reviews. It isn't okay to reward or incentivize people who leave you reviews or for your employees to ask for reviews. So making sure that to walk that fine line of asking for reviews but not rewarding or incentivizing. Lowe's obviously has some really great reviews, reviews that have the most, typically the most stars will show up more prominently in the Google My Business listing, and then taking time to respond to reviews because people want to see that interaction, and it will actually show up in the Google My Business listing on the knowledge panel if you're responding to reviews in your response to those reviews. Google My Business posts showed up a little over a year ago, and they're a great way to encourage engagement and click-through rate in your with your Google My Business listing. They show up down towards the bottom of the Google My Business listing unless they're a COVID-19 update where they show up more towards the top of the listing. Using photos is highly recommended in all post types. You can't use photos in the COVID-19 update, but you can use them in offer posts, in business updates, and in event posts. They make posts more engaging. Just be careful, just like you would with any other social media post, to not use a lot of text in your photos. You want to make those engaging, but without a lot of text. Use UTM tagging again so that you can track the engagement with your Google My Business posts to your website. And use a landing page that makes sense. So if you're using an offer post or an update post and you're sending people from your Google My Business listing to your website, make the page that you're sending them relevant to the post. Because if they land on a page on your website that wasn't relevant to the post that they clicked on, they're probably going to just bounce right off of your website, and that's going to negatively impact your bounce rate over time. Our team here at our development team here at October is headed up by Noah Lerner, has a Google My Business post scheduler. Noah created it with the help of some of our talented folks, and then also the folks at Agency Automators. And it allows you to schedule Google My Business posts, which is really helpful because at scale, it can be really challenging to go in individually to every single Google My Business listing you manage and have to manually add those posts. So being able to schedule that via Google Sheets add-on is really helpful. So check that out. We highly recommend it. And if you have feedback, be sure to let us know about that. Similar to posts, Google My Business FAQ is a way that you can interact with your listing. The FAQ shows up in about the midsection of the Google My Business listing, and anybody can actually ask or answer questions. So this is a great source of user-generated content. Just like on the website where Google likes to see user-generated content, Google really likes to see user-generated content on the GMB listing. But as a business owner, you can actually seed your own questions and answers. So it's kind of like having your own FAQ page right on your Google My Business listing. You won't be penalized for seeding that. And then you can actually thumbs up the important questions and answers in hopes of getting them to show up on the knowledge panel before people actually have to click through to see the questions and answers. It's also important, because it is a source of user-generated content, that you monitor and respond to those Q&A. It could be a great place to get leads. If somebody asks about a specific service or product that your business offers, if you're monitoring those in a timely fashion and can respond to them, you might be able to capture that question as an actual lead. When you're thinking about seeding your own FAQ questions and answers, or thinking about your questions and answers, thinking about what people ask your business, thinking about what they ask you when they call you, when they email your customer service team, and using those to seed your Q&A. And then if you're also stuck, look at the people also ask results that show up further down in the organic search results. Those can be great ideas to add to your Q&A on your GMB listing. And similar to the Google My Business post automation tool, Noah has created, along with agency automators, a Q&A tool, which allows you to put in questions and answers and automatically populate those to Google My Business listings, which is a great way to save time, especially if you're trying to do this sort of thing at scale. So Costco, an example of a really relevant question. This is an example of where a question has been thumbs up and shows up in the Google My Business listing because it's been thumbs up. Somebody asked, do they have toilet paper there? Somebody said none yesterday. You click through, you'd actually be able to see the date, so you could see how relevant that question is. But this is an example of somebody asking a question and somebody answering it without the business being involved. The example on the right, once a question has 3 thumbs up and the answer has 2 or 3 thumbs up, then it will actually show up in the knowledge panel without you having to click through to see that. Google My Business photos are especially important because they draw attention to the listing. So just like with any other user-generated content like Q&A, Google wants to see that you're having that type of content on your listing. So anybody can post photos of a listing or photos of a location on your Google My Business listing. As an owner, you have an option to report those if they're not relevant, but Google ultimately has the say as to if those photos stay on your listing or not. But as a business owner, you have the opportunity to take control over uploading your own photos. And Google wants to see that you have a variety of photos of your business. So they want to see that you have at least 3 strong relevant interior photos and 3 strong relevant exterior photos that show the entrance to your business, something that shows your address. Having staff photos is a really great idea, similarly to the location pages, because that shows who people will encounter when they come to your business. Having product photos, so if you're a restaurant, having photos of your food, having photos of your menu, just ensuring that those photos are accurate and not just stock photos. So a lot of times people will engage with like a professional photographer, which makes your photos look good, but it's not what Google wants to see. Google wants to see what people would see when they come into your business. And then post new photos often, because the more often you have fresh photos, the better of a glimpse of your business people will get. So if you're a restaurant and you've rearranged your seating so that it is relevant right now with social distancing, post photos that show your customers that they'll see tables 6 feet apart or more when they come into your business right now. That'll add an extra layer of comfort, and it keeps relevant new photos on your Google My Business listing. Another feature of Google My Business that a lot of people overlook is the opportunity to highlight products or services. This feature is only available on mobile, and products are only available for certain retail categories, and services are only available for certain service area categories. But if you are uploading products to your Google My Business listing, you can use photos and you can add pricing and allow people to click through to those actual product pages. So it's a great way to generate extra revenue from your Google My Business listing. REI does a really great job of this. This is an example of when a business is likely connecting their Google My Business listing in with their product feed from their Google AdWords account, and they're getting actual in-stock, limited stock, and updated pricing information for a specific location. You don't have to get quite this in-depth to make it useful to you. But if you're a service area business, you can also add a menu of your services. So this plumber is able to list out all of the different plumbing services they offer. So somebody's able to get a really good picture of what this business offers before they even go to the website. Switching gears to local links. Local links are obviously an important factor, like Yasmin had touched on with internal linking on your website. That's important because it sends a good signal that you're linking between the important and relevant content on your website. And similarly, having a strong backlink profile tells Google that your business is trustworthy and authoritative. For a local business, especially a multi-location business where you have locations in multiple cities, having that strong link profile for each of those locations with those relevant links is especially important to Google. Links at the local level can come in the form of brand building, which I think is especially helpful when we think about multi-location businesses. So looking at things like REI or the Home Depot, really building up a strong brand presence can lead itself to having a stronger link profile. Relationship building is another part of having a strong local link profile. This is a little more relevant if you're a single location or a smaller chain location type of business, but building relationships can help to get more links for your website that are locally relevant. So building relationships with other businesses in town, other relevant resources. If you're the Home Depot, building a relationship, obviously they probably don't need as much help because they're a really large brand, but building relationships with something like a local realtor who's recommending resources for home improvement projects when people buy a new house are a great way to build relationships. Some other things to think about when it comes to local link building. Creating local resources. So for things like REI, they do a really great job of creating local outdoor guides that are relevant to the location that that business is in, and people pick that up. It gets shared on social media. People post it other places, and that creates some natural links coming back to their site because they've created a piece of content that people want to link to. Sponsoring events is another great way to get links. So anytime a business is sponsoring an event or donating money where they can get a link back from that sponsorship, that sends a trust signal that they're doing something good. Paying attention to the competition is something that sometimes people don't think about when they think about building backlinks, but using tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs to look at your competitor's link profile and see where they're actually getting their links from, and using that information to find other relevant places that you can get links from. And then lastly, thinking outside of the box. One tactic that I've read a lot about and seen that actually works is reaching out to alumni associations. So if you have people that work at a specific location, reaching out to the alumni association of the college that they went to, getting links back from that website. Really thinking outside the box when it comes to local link building and how that plays in with relationship building, like thinking about vendors. So for a multi-location brand, having links from vendors that they get supplies from, linking back to their site is another way to get relevant links that may not be as locally relevant, but are still relevant to the business. Another important aspect of handling multi-location SEO is reporting. Obviously, you need to be able to report on the KPIs for each location. So thinking about things like organic sessions, both traffic to the website and traffic to the location page for that specific location, which is why going back to the Google My Business listing, UTM tagging is incredibly helpful. Thinking about conversion metrics, so phone calls, sales that are coming in from that specific location, contact form submissions, anything that's a conversion metric for that specific business is definitely something that you want to be reporting on. Engagement metrics, so things like photo views on the Google My Business listing, direct people clicking on directions on the Google My Business listing, blog post views, location page views, those types of engagement metrics are definitely important to consider. And then rank tracking, which we'll talk about in a minute. There are a lot of great tools that make reporting easier. Nico, our moderator, did a really great workshop on dashboards, and the video for that is on our YouTube channel. Data Studio, Google Data Studio is another great tool that's helpful for reporting. I believe we have a Data Studio workshop coming up sometime in the next couple of months. But Data Studio can be a really great way to pull in multiple data sources and aggregate it, especially when we're talking about multi-locations. One thing, we'll talk about it in 1 second. I use Google Data Studio for geo-targeted rank tracking for multiple locations, and I'll show an example of that in a second. But one specific metric that a lot of people want to have reported on is keyword tracking. So when we're talking about multi-locations, we definitely want to think about geo-specific keywords. Like we talked about earlier, with over 46% of the trillions of Google searches being local, really getting a sense for what kind of search visibility you're getting for really location-specific keywords can be really valuable data to have. Tracking keywords for the areas that are important to you, so Denver plumber, Arvada HVAC, the areas that you want to show up in, making sure that you're tracking those keywords with those geolocation modifiers. And then also tracking near me keywords. There's a lot of search volume for near me searches. So plumber near me, lumberyard near me, those types of searches are really important to track. And then lastly, paying attention to keywords in both organic results and the local map pack. A lot of times people get frustrated and really get hung up on only showing up in the local map results for a location. But like we've talked about, it's really hard to show up in that local map pack for a service area where you don't actually have a physical location. So that's where showing up, paying attention to where you show up in the organic results for localized searches is also an important thing to track. I touched on Google Data Studio a minute ago. This is one of the benefits of pulling in local keyword data into Google Data Studio. You can use a filter to drill down by specific location, all in one report, which can make aggregating and reporting on multiple locations a lot easier, and having that in one central place. There's a lot of great tools that will help you track your local keywords. Bright Local, SEMrush, Local Falcon, MozLocal, and Mobile Moxie all do things a little bit differently when it comes to local rank tracking. So depending on the number of locations you have or what your specific needs are, one of these tools can definitely help you track your results on a location by location basis.
All right, so we've gone through a lot today, and so we just wanted to sort of recap our top best practices and top tips for you all. So if you forget everything we've talked about, these are the main things to take away. So in terms of really looking at multi-location management, what your top do's and don'ts are. So starting over on the do's side, we've stressed this multiple times throughout the presentation, but really making sure that you're using that consistent name, address, phone number across all of your citations. Again, we can't stress this enough, especially with your business name. Just make sure that whatever it is on your site, that's what it is on every other listing, word for word, letter for letter. Like Vicky said, don't add any keywords or anything fancy to it. It's super important. And making sure you're using a local phone number as opposed to a 1-800 number keeping your hours updated, not only on the site, but across all of your citations. This gets to be very important, especially now with a lot of, reopenings happening and hours fluctuating, and, during the holidays too, with seasonal hours and things like that. So just things to keep in mind, making sure that that information is always up to date. And then using that location-specific content. So again, making sure that you're staying away from the templatized generic content as much as possible. And then using, I'm sorry, was there a question? And then using a unique title and meta description across all of those pages as well. On the don't side, so again, do not use a varying business name across your citations. Keep that consistent. Avoid using a 1-800 number for your location pages, as well as Google My Business and your other citations. Don't fail to update your hours regularly. So anytime you have a change there, just be mindful. That's oftentimes the first and only place that people are going to see your information. I can't recall the specific statistic, but there's a lot of times where a lot of searches, people will just see the listing and they won't even necessarily click through. They may just call your business, or maybe they just are looking at that information and saying, oh, it's open now, I'm going to go to the store, and maybe it's not actually open. So just making sure that that information is always up to date. Do not use a content template or generic content, as we've reiterated numerous times. And then don't only replace the city and state names across your metadata. Try to make that as unique as possible. And then in terms of Google My Business specifically, so as Nico mentioned, we'll be sharing out this deck, so I won't go through all of these items, but this is just a checklist for you to have, just to keep handy in terms of the key things that you should be paying attention to as you're going through and optimizing those listings. So in terms of scaling, so we talked a lot about the location best practices and things that you should be doing, and really how can you apply that if you're dealing with a lot of locations and making that feasible for you and your teams. So there's a couple of key things to consider. So as we talked about with the location pages specifically, really prioritizing by market. So starting with those pages for your large markets, like I mentioned when we first started our discussion today, and then drilling down into sub-markets and specific individual location pages from there, but at least making sure you have that major coverage to start. And then from a content perspective, creating unique content, so incorporating that unique geo-modifier keywords that really differentiate the market that you're targeting and the individual location. So again, you can use some aspects of a template, especially if you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of locations, but really keep that more for that high-level brand messaging, and keep the store or location or market area information specific so that you're avoiding duplicate content, but even more than that, that it's valuable and useful information for your target consumers. And then with citations, it does, as Nikki mentioned, it can be very cumbersome and overwhelming to try to go and manually update every single citation out there. And we're not necessarily suggesting for you to do that if it's not feasible. So using some of those distribution management tools that Nikki talked about can really help with that bulk distribution. And then finally, with reporting, really focusing on the KPIs and the information that Nikki discussed to make sure that it is, relevant and valuable to your business. Don't try to focus on too many things, but maybe hone in on some of those local keywords that Nikki mentioned, and determine really what's that hot list for you and where you want to focus, so that you can really track your progress over time and see that your optimization efforts are working. So in terms of next steps, like Nico mentioned, we'll be sharing out this information so that you have it to review, and then there will also be a video that will go up on YouTube. So once that's ready, we'll send that link out, but we'd love to continue discussions. Of course, we do have the time allocated now for any questions that you may have. Nikki and I will be able to field any Q&A. But just to kind of recap, so we, of course, offer SEO and content marketing here at 2 October. So we have the technical expertise, but also really combining that with, how does that marry in with the website experience, and really helping to craft that audience-driven content strategy. And specific to the location piece, we do work with lots of businesses and agencies as well. So we do have a white label service that we provide, where we can really help you with that distribution and management of location pages, since that is, it can be a very large and daunting task. And it certainly is, as you've seen today, very important and something that's very prevalent and top of mind for a lot of businesses. And just to sort of summarize here, other services that we provide, of course, everything and anything that you could think of from a digital aspect, from SEM to analytics and email marketing and training and coaching. So we have a lot of great information. We do these webinars. We have a series coming up, actually. Nikki, flick through to the next slide. We've outlined a couple. You can go to our website and sign up for some upcoming webinars. So if you enjoyed what we talked about today, this is actually part of a multi-location series. And you can attend the next one on July 14th, where we'll be diving into paid search and social media. So today we really focused on SEO and content. Paid search and social is a whole other realm of local to look at. So definitely join us for that. And then we have lots of other great webinars coming up. So we really hope you can join us for those. And we just highlighted a few here for you. And thank you all so much for your time. And like Nico mentioned, we'll be sticking around for some questions, but I really appreciate everyone joining us today. And we've got our contact information here, so you want to reach out to us individually after as well.